Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of the So What podcast. My name is Anna McGuire, and I'm so excited to have a conversation with you today about sowing intentionally into our lives so that we can reap abundantly in the days, weeks, months, and even years to come. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you for all of your incredible support coming back into a new season after a 3-year pause. It has been overwhelming in the best way possible. Your encouraging messages, the texts that I've gotten, the feedback, the subscriptions, the ratings of the podcast on the different platforms. It really means so much to me. And only gets me all the more excited to keep creating, keep showing up, keep having conversations. And as I was really preparing and planning for this season, there was a couple of things that I really felt laid on my heart to talk about. And a lot of this season is going to be about personal responsibility. Now, this is what I believe is that God's responsibility is salvation. Like, I cannot save myself. There is no way for me to be saved. There is only one way, and that is Jesus, his death, his resurrection, the promise of life that he has given me in him. That is the only way for me to be saved. But part of that experience is then I take the responsibility after I'm saved. It is my responsibility if I want to grow, if I want to be sanctified, if I want to mature. So salvation is God's responsibility. Sanctification, growth, seeing redemption in my life, that is my responsibility. And yes, God is the Redeemer. He is the one who works everything out for the good, but I have to be a willing participant in that. And I can choose to live in a way that totally opposes the word of God and then wonder why. I'm like, why am I miserable? Why don't I not have this joy and this peace that scripture talks about? Well, again, it's my choice, my responsibility. And as I, again, was looking through the content and mapping things out for this season, this idea of self-sabotage came to my mind. Now, I've talked about self-sabotaging before, and what self-sabotaging is, I'm going to give you the definition right here off the top, is that it's a behavior or thoughts, which I would like to say like beliefs. So behavior, thoughts, beliefs that are sometimes unconscious in nature that are harmful to one's own interest or development. Okay, so self-sabotage is behaviors or thoughts, and I'm going to add beliefs that sometimes are unconscious, sometimes, not always, sometimes it's very intentional, that are harmful to one's own interests or development. So it's behaviors, thoughts, beliefs that are harmful to our own growth, to our own maturity, to our own, I would say, sanctification and growth. And when I partner with people, so I get to pastor people, I get to coach people, I coach a lot of people, I coach clients, I coach coaches. One thing that I see as I guess maybe, I don't want to say a constant, but something that is often showing up in coaching, that shows up as I pastor, is self-sabotage. It is not, a lot of times we look for the things around us that are quote unquote ruining our lives, when really we just have to look and see, it is the decisions I am making or refusing to make that is hurting my own growth and development. And so a lot of times when we feel like we're stuck or we aren't where we want to be, we're looking for these like grand things, like what is the big things that are wrong. And one thing I really want to talk about is the subtle ways, the small ways that we often sabotage ourselves, the things that are sneaky, that are quiet, that maybe we've accepted as normal, that it is in some ways unconscious because it's just a part of what we do at this point, that we've accepted it. And so I want to talk about the subtle ways that we sabotage ourselves, that we make decisions that are not benefiting our own interests or our own growth. Last week, I talked about how in 1 Peter chapter 5, and so many of you said this is what stuck out to you from that like rebirth episode, was this idea of being sober-minded. So I'm going to read this verse. It's 1 Peter 5:8. It says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." Resist him, stand firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. So that's verse number 9. But really in verse number 8, it talks about being sober-minded, because the enemy is looking for who he can devour, who he can, it says in John, like Jesus says in John that the enemy has come to kill, steal, and destroy. And the beauty, the hope on the other side is that Jesus says that I have come to give you life and life more abundantly. So intentionally reap abundantly. Okay, that's a whole nother conversation. But it's important to be sober-minded, to be conscious about the things that we're doing that are not serving us, that could help us fall into the trap of the enemy. It is so incredibly important. Be sober-minded. Be sober-minded. And so this is going to be us talking about being sober-minded, making ourselves conscious of the things that we're doing. And that's a big thing, is that we want to make ourselves conscious. If you hear the idea of sober-minded, is we're thinking clearly, we're seeing clearly, we're not distracted, we're not dizzy. If you think about being intoxicated, like what does that do? It throws off your judgment, your choice making, maybe you're numb. That we want to be sober-minded. We want to be sober-minded. We want to think clearly, we want to have good judgment. So self-sabotage, like I said, it's behaviors, thoughts, or even beliefs that sometimes are unconscious. So we want to come consciousness. So we want to be sober-minded, that are harmful to our own interests, our own development, our own growth. And so there's 3 things that I have seen, even in my own life. I'm not going to just say about other people, in my own life, that are subtle ways that I self-sabotage. So let's jump in with number 1. The first way that I see subtle self-sabotage is comparison. Comparison. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me this last week. I was on Instagram and I saw a friend who had tagged like this girl, and I thought, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I've never seen this person's like profile before. Who is that? And I went to her profile and she's like all about like coaching and development. And I saw like her very first pinned post was that she had bought a brand new Mercedes-Benz, and like a really nice one. And I was like, oh my gosh, how is it that I feel like I work really hard? How do I not have a Mercedes? And Anna, you might be thinking, Anna, I can't believe you're saying this. You are so, I don't know, conceited. I'm being vulnerable and honest with you guys, okay? And I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't even want a Mercedes. Like, but why is it that I can't have like a brand new Toyota or Lexus or whatever? And I just started to compare myself, and I was looking at her stuff and I'm like, I'm like a great coach. Like I do all these things, like, and you guys, I had to like shut it down. I'm like, what am I doing? And that was like, for me, that was self-sabotage. I was starting to say like, I'm not doing enough. I'm broken. I'm not good at what I do. Like it was just this like cycle that I was like biting into by comparing myself. And the thing that I have found with social media is that we often can see things that are intended to be inspirational. Like this woman, like I'm not mad at her. She did nothing wrong by celebrating that she's worked really hard to get a Mercedes. But things that were intended to be inspirational, we begin to take it as a way to compare ourselves. And I've even found that like as we seek out people on social media, we compare ourselves to them. That was my experience this last week, you guys. And I had to stop it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally talking about this on my podcast. Comparison. This is sabotaging me. It's sabotaging my beliefs for the day, my actions, the way I'm talking to myself. This is not good for me. And so when it comes to comparison, it drains us of motivation. And that's just it. It did not motivate me to go work harder by comparing myself to this woman. Instead, it made me think like, well, what I do isn't enough anyways. And it robbed me of joy by comparing myself. And so here's a practical thing you can do if you find yourself in a comparison moment, especially on social media. We can do this like all day long. And then even in person, is when you notice that you're scrolling and there's like that comparison, especially if it's on social media, stop yourself, tell yourself like, this is not serving me, and close the app. And that's what I did. I closed out Instagram, and then I began to like talk to myself, and I would begin to say, God, thank you for the way you made me. Thank you for the assignments you've given me. Thank you for what you've entrusted me with. Like this woman, you've called her to one lane and you've called me to another. And I just began to say thank you and express gratitude to God, began to shift my thinking, moving away from comparison into gratitude. And so maybe comparison is something that you feel like is really challenging for you, is that maybe you need to, do you hear my baby crying? I would like stop the episode, but this is my real life. Andrew's got her. She's good. But that being said is, okay, let me pause, get my head back in it. Okay, she's good. All right. So, but that being said is that when we're in comparison, it's like saying that I'm not enough. What I have isn't enough. What I do isn't enough. And so we have to move into thanksgiving, gratitude, and be reminded that what I have is enough, who I am is enough, and what I do is enough. And being reminded that everybody has different assignments, everybody has different seasons. And I look at this woman and I began to like thank God for her. I'm like, okay, her season is completely different. Her lane is completely different. God, thank you that she is a mighty woman of God, that you are blessing her, that you are using her for the kingdom. And I even began to thank God for her. So a big way we sabotage ourselves is comparison, because it robs us, it drains us of motivation and joy. And I think so many of us, we live in habitual comparison and we don't even realize it. Comparison has just become a normal way of living. And so moving out of this, and when you start noticing that it's happening, pivot, shift. If you're in person, like, and you're like, I can't get away from the person, I can't just like walk away like I could like close an app. Again, in your mind, gratitude. Thank God for who you are, for the way he designed you, the assignments he's given you, what he's entrusted you with. Start there to shift comparison. And one of my mentors, she would often say, compare and compete and you'll live in defeat. Like this is the biggest way to live defeated, to feel discouraged in every day of our lives. All right, so that's the first subtle way we self-sabotage. The second, again, these are patterns that I see. I'm only going into 3, but these are the 3 most I see. The second is indecision or delayed decision making. So much of the time we wait for a perfect day, the perfect set of circumstance, the right moment to do the thing that we know that we want to do, whether that's pursue the dream, make the healthy choice, go have that hard conversation, post the thing on social media, jump into the endeavor. Like we're waiting for the right moment. And can I tell you one thing that I've observed and experienced in my own life is waiting for the perfect day, having that perfect moment, having the right set of circumstances is often fear in disguise. We're actually letting fear keep us from taking that next step. So indecision, it keeps us in limbo. And even though that can make us feel like safe because we're not like exposing ourselves, we're not taking risks, it is often suffocating to our dreams and our potential. And so if you know that there's a decision that you need to make, that you've been delaying making that decision, maybe it's applying for a job, maybe it's starting the business, maybe there's something that God has asked you to be obedient in that is uncomfortable for you, that takes you out of what it is that you know. Maybe it's like outside of your preferences. Make the decision. Indecision or delayed decision making will sabotage you. It will keep you stuck. It will keep you stuck. It will keep you bound up by fear, and it will make you think that you can only live small. So you've got to move into the ability to start making choices. And so here's a practical question you can ask yourself today is, what's one small decision that I can make today that moves me forward? Maybe it's like, again, a big thing that you're looking towards, or maybe it's something with your child. I don't know. What's one small choice that I can make today that moves me forward? Because again, indecision keeps you stuck. I posted this quote the other day. I saw it on Facebook and I thought it was so good. It was that indecision robs you of opportunity. And I thought, wow, how many opportunities do we miss simply because we won't respond or act or make a choice? And so today, stop delaying the decision. Don't wait till tomorrow. Number one, because the Bible also tells us that tomorrow isn't promised. So if there's something you want to do, act on it today. But number two is that by delaying it and pushing things out, we're not going to experience like a life more abundantly. We want to sow today so we can have our harvest in the days, weeks, months, even years to come. But that means that we show up and we plant seeds and we sow intentionally today. So that's the second thing I see is indecision or delayed decision making. And then the third thing is doing things we know we shouldn't do. And I would say is being committed to the shouldn't. So how many times in your day or your week do you do things that subconsciously you tell yourself, I know I shouldn't be doing this? Maybe it is how much alcohol you're drinking. Maybe it's that you're drinking wine multiple nights a week, or it's what shows you're watching, a book you're reading, friendships you're holding on to, food you're eating. Maybe it's something or someone that you've opened your life to. And like, there's just this like shouldn't. And I think a lot of us were committed to our shouldn'ts, or that we suppress our shouldn'ts, even though we know better. And so our inner like self-sabotaging will tell us just this once won't matter. But the small compromises chip away at self-trust, or our own like reputation with ourselves. We begin to create a reputation with ourselves that is one of distrust, lack of integrity, low character. So if you want to build your confidence, you want to rebuild your reputation with yourself, is like keep a commitment and let go of the shouldn'ts. So we rationalize shouldn'ts because we give ourselves excuses, we give ourselves way out. And so one thing I want to encourage you with is pick one shouldn't this week and flip it. Do the opposite of what you know you ought to do and notice how that feels. And it could be as simple as like it's 4:00 and you're like, I shouldn't drink this coffee because I know it's going to keep me up at night. Flip it. And then you're like scrolling until like 1 a.m. on your phone or watching TV. Like flip the shouldn't. Do what you know you ought to do. You don't have to overhaul all of the shouldn'ts in one day, but start with one this week. Acknowledge the shouldn't and flip it. Do what you know you ought to do. Because that's another challenge that we see, is that there's so many things we know we ought to do, but we don't, because we give ourselves excuses. We give ourselves almost too much grace. Like I'm all about giving ourselves grace, acknowledging maybe challenges or the season that we're in, but not giving ourselves so much grace that we're living in a way that we're sabotaging ourselves. We're not serving ourselves. We're not stewarding the body, the mind, the spirit, the one life that God has given us. So the 3 ways that we subtly self-sabotage: comparison, indecision, and being committed to our shouldn'ts. Subtle sabotages, again, they might not look dramatic. They might not be like glaringly obvious at the things that are hurting us, but over time, they keep us from growth. It keeps us from experiencing peace, keeps us from experiencing purpose. But here's the good news, is that we can be sober-minded. We can create awareness around what it is that we're sabotaging ourselves with, and we can make decisions, take personal responsibility to change, to start. And here's the thing, start small. I'm not saying overhaul all the things this very second, but doing small things. And that's what what's all about, is that we so intentionally, we find the ways to so intentionally, we find the little ways here and there. And then as we just start capitalizing on the little choices we make, it compounds, and we see that we're growing and that we're developing and maturing. How awesome is that? And so today, how can you disrupt comparison? How can you take one decision that you've been delaying and start acting on it? And how can you flip a shouldn't this week to doing something you know that is good for you, that you ought to do. You can start sowing intentional seeds this very moment, today. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You don't have to wait until life gets better, until you grow more, until you talk to Jesus again. Like, you can start this very second to sow intentionally. One decision, one thought, one small act at a time. Imagine if we all did this. Imagine if we all sowed intentionally together. Imagine if we all were to disrupt these subtle self-sabotaging beliefs and behaviors. What would our lives look like? What would our communities look like? What would our world look like? Man, this gets me fired up. And I'm with you on this. I'm growing in this. Guys, I just told you about my comparison story this last week. I'm still right here in the middle of it with you. I have not arrived yet. And so I'm going to walk with you through this as well. And I'm encouraged. I'm fired up to really continue to disrupt comparison, move away from indecision and into decision making, and not being committed my shouldn'ts, but doing what I know I ought to do. Well, friend, I love you so much. I'm in your corner and I'm cheering you on. I so believe that you are capable of sowing intentionally into your life so that you can reap abundantly. God has so much good, so much purpose, so much opportunity in store for you. But we get to make the choice. Are we going to be a part of it? All right, friend, I cannot wait to talk to you next week. It's going to be a fun season. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. And yeah, I'll talk to you next week, my friend. I love you. Bye.